So if there's any video you need to watch from me, it needs to be this one. And especially if you went through any form of childhood trauma in your childhood. Our childhood trauma affects our relationships so greatly. You have no idea. That's why we say, if you don't address your childhood trauma, your romantic relationships will address the trauma. So your childhood trauma affects your romantic relationships in 3 ways. The first thing is conflict resolution. That was me. I'll give you my story. The other thing is that is emotional regulation, attachment styles. Yes. So emotional regulation, attachment styles, and communication, how you communicate. So childhood trauma is any unpleasant experiences that you go through in your childhood that give you PTSD, is post-traumatic stress disorder, that follow you into your adulthood. For example, if you were brought up in a home where there was violence, it's very easy for you to find yourself in an abusive relationship because that's what you know. That becomes the standard, or that is what is familiar to you. Or if you were brought up in a home where your dad was very abusive, even verbally, let's just even say verbally, he was mean, he was the African dad, the tough love and all that. That is how you know a relationship between a man and a woman feels like. That was the first man in your life. Yeah. And so now when you start getting to know people, when you start dating, it's very easy for you to find men who are abusing you the same way and you never leave them. Because at some point, a man who loved you was abusive to you. That's your caregiver or your parent. And for me, like I was brought up in a home where my dad was very tough and I was not very bright in school. So it was a lot. And so I used to find myself in relationships with men who are also very mean. Who are also that tough love thing. And I didn't think it was a reason for me to leave those relationships because see, they love me, right? Yes. So your childhood trauma will affect you in your love relationships because the first relationship you had with a man is with your dad. Or if you didn't, for ladies, there are people who don't go through any trauma, even those that are brought up by a single parent. However, some of the people who are brought up by a single parent, especially if you're brought up by your mom and your dad was not present, sometimes you find yourself being hyper independent. You find yourself leaving people before they leave you because you don't want them to abandon you again the same way you were abandoned. And so, like, for me, one thing that was happening in my relationships is I did not know how to handle conflict. I did not know how to handle conflict. It's either I'm running out of the room crying, it's either I'm blocking you for a whole week, it's either like I was going to the extreme, very minor things. I'd amplify very minor things, the little things. And then the big things, like when he's ghosting me or when I'd minimize them. Yeah. So your childhood trauma affects how you show up in a relationship. If you were brought up at a home where there was a lot of fear, when your parent walks in, you have to run and hide. You learn to walk on eggshells. It's very easy for you to find yourself in a relationship where you're walking on eggshells, not because it feels good, but because that is the standard of love that you saw growing up. That was the level of conditioning that you are made to go through. So also, we have different attachment styles in relationships. We have those that are anxious, fearful. We have avoidance. I am an avoidant. Now is when I'm leaning more towards secure. Then we have the disorganized attachment style. Our attachment styles are greatly influenced by our years in infancy and as children during our upbringing. If you're brought up by parents or by caregivers who are nonchalant and who are not emotionally available and who didn't care about your emotional needs, it's very easy for you to also not know how to connect emotionally. And so you find yourself being with men who are emotionally unavailable or even with narcissists. So I'm in the car, so there might be funny noise even from outside. So it's very easy for you to be aware of what happened to you. What did you go through in your childhood? And as a result of what you went through in your childhood, how have you been showing up in relationships? I know what my childhood trauma had done to me. And even by the time I was coming to heal, I knew how I was showing up in relationships. And I didn't want to show up like that anymore. One of the reasons why people don't leave some of these very abusive relationships is because these relationships also come with cycles of positive reinforcement. He can push you around or he can cheat around, but sometimes he takes you for dinner. Sometimes he'll buy something nice from the store. If at some point you learned that People can love you and be mean to you. People can love you and ghost you. Like for those of us who are brought up in homes where your dad doesn't even say hi when he comes home from work. He just gets in and he's like, why are you laughing here? It's just so even when you start getting to know someone and then you realize they're behaving the same way, you don't think it's a reason to leave them. You don't think it's, see, they love me, but sometimes they don't say hi, you know. So it's important for you to know your childhood trauma. What happened to you? What kind of environment were you brought up in? And I keep saying, women date and marry our fathers until we heal our childhood trauma. And that's what it means. The first relationship you had with a man was with your dad. And so if he was abusive or nonchalant, or if he was very mean to you, or if he was whatever it is that he was, you normalize that. You think that's the way a relationship with a man feels like, because that was the first man in your life. And so you find that you keep dating your father in a different man, yeah, until you actually heal and until you do the inner work. If you want, I can support you in your healing journey. I have a package called Healing Childhood Trauma. If you want to have good, healthy and fulfilling relationships, you have to heal your trauma. And another thing about trauma, when you're choosing a spouse, just know you're also choosing a co-parent for your inner child. You know who's the inner child? If you don't know, Google it. It's the inner child is your younger representation, the younger you. We all have that inner child in us. And so when you're choosing a life partner, you're also choosing a co-parent for your inner child. So if you're choosing a co-parent who is still mean, if you're choosing a co-parent who cheats on you, who treats you badly, who takes you for granted, then you'll still continue to re-traumatize your inner child, that younger part of you. Yeah. So heal your trauma. If you want to get to beautiful, if you want to get into beautiful, fulfilling, healthy relationships, you have to heal your trauma. We show up in ways that are not very good. Like for me, I never learned how to manage my emotions, especially if you're brought up in a home where your parents are very emotionally unpredictable, or you're brought up at a home where there's a lot of yelling, and then you start getting to know even a good guy and then you're yelling because people yell, right? Like you normalized it. And so this guy's like, why is this woman yelling? But in your home, that was normal. So you find that even how you show up, the way you show up, like me, I had problems with conflict resolution skills. I also had a lot of anger from my childhood that I had to work towards releasing. I had a lot of anger, and that anger used to come out in relationships. Something very minor would really tick me off, and it would really, like that anger used to be so much, and I could tell this is not from this thing. Like this anger is coming from somewhere. And it was until I healed my trauma that I was able to know how to process my emotions and to release my anger, and how to communicate to make and not to break. Yeah. So if you went through childhood trauma, your romantic relationships gets affected in 3 ways. You don't know how to regulate your emotions. Number 2, in terms of how you to communicate. Maybe you don't know how to communicate. You swipe things that the rag so much, you people please so much. By the time you're talking about that thing, you are blowing fumes. You are so mad. You are so angry. You're exploding. You're mean. You're throwing things against the wall. And finally, the way you attach to people. If you're too needy, if you have anxious attachment style, it means you show up in a very needy way. You want reassurance. You want to know they care about you, and you want them to keep checking up on you. How are you able to communicate those needs? Because regardless of your attachment style, you deserve love. You just need to know. For example, for people with anxious attachment style, I say, learn to communicate. Learn to let them know. If you find yourself needy and all that, find ways to be able to validate yourself. At the same time, communicate. Tell him, I really like it when you check up on me. Or, I really love it when you do this. Like even learning to communicate your needs, even as you work towards becoming more secure in the way you attach. Anyway, those are some of the ways we show up. I'm taking new clients this August. Starting now, you guys usually come all at the same time. I had clients from June, beginning of June. Now most of them are done with the session, so now I'm taking new clients. Take my Healing Childhood Trauma package. If you want to feel good about yourself, if you want to enjoy love, and if you want to free yourself from what your trauma did to you, then you need to come to my sessions. Book a session, or especially take a package so I can work a whole 6 weeks with you with weekly sessions. Anyway, bye.